Mr. Smith?
I had the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You starting to sink in, man.
Yeah,
Well, you gotta finish it now.
that's right.
I call to order this regular session of Vienna City Council. Having taken roll and having a quorum, we will proceed. We did not have anybody sign up for the public forum. The reports of the minutes from the 8/13/26 meeting have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? That Ms. Roberts did a fabulous job.
Yes, she did.
If not, the minutes will stand as submitted. We do not have any unfinished business, so, no, we don't have a treasury report.
No, that's next meeting.
Next meeting, yep.
Public forum.
Nobody signed up for public forum. Moving on then to new business. The first two items that we have are resolutions dealing with the approval of service orders in regards to the development of Spencer's Landing. What I would like to do is ask Sam if you would present first and just give the basic or the detailed information about it, then we'll deal with the resolutions following that. Russ, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But we're still gonna vote on seven, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I just want to give him the opportunity to, instead of onesies and twosies.
No worries.
Good evening. So you all have two task orders on your agenda tonight. We're going to start with task order number 2, and then I'll go over what task order number 3 is. So the last time I was in front of you all, we talked about getting amendment to our, not an amendment, but an additional service order in place with our master service agreement. Right now, the service order number 1 that we have authorized us to design the restroom closest to the parking lot as well as the stage, but did not authorize us beyond design to include bidding and construction administration to see the project through those two processes. So service order number 2 that I have put in front of you all is for bidding and construction administration, with bidding at $8,000 and construction administration at $45,000 for a proposed lump sum fee of $53,000. There is some language included in this service order 2 that does pertain to service order number 3. Another recap from the last meeting when I was here is we were asked to put together a proposal to include design and permitting associated with the concession and restroom building that would be closest to the stage. So that would be an additional design that was not included in our original scope of work either. We have included some allowance for additional geotechnical investigations so that we can authorize our vendor to do some more borings in that location while they're on site doing the borings for the other restroom and stage area, and then the design and permitting associated with that. So you have additional geotechnical investigation at $10,000 and design and permitting for the restroom concession at $35,000 for a total lump sum fee of $45,000. Going back to service order number 2, I included some language that the bidding and construction administration, if authorized, would, I was trying to do this in a way so that we didn't have to come back to you all and present additional service orders if one got denied and one got approved. But basically what we're allowing for is that if you all approve number 2 and number 3, we will include the construction administration and bidding as part of service order number 2 for service order number 3's design project. So it would, that will cover you for the 2 buildings that were already under contract to design, as well as the new one that we have put in front of you tonight. So that's kind of an overview of the service orders that we have submitted and what kind of our next steps would be if those are approved.
Thank you. Russ, do you want to go over resolution number 1?
This is a resolution authorizing and approving. Do you want me to just? I'll just read it.
You can read it in the title.
Resolution authorizing and approving service order number 2 with the Thrasher Group Inc. for bidding and construction administration services for the Spencer's Landing Performance Stage project. I think the part that is probably, you all already have a copy of this, but I think the part that the public would probably be interested in is the scope which, as has been laid out, it deals with the construction administration and periodic inspection services for a proposed restroom building, performance stage, and associated site work. And the service order number 2 provides for a lump sum fee of $53,000, consisting of $8,000 for bidding services and $45,000 for construction administration services.
Having heard, resolution number 1, do I have a motion to accept? Eric,
Second.
and a second?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for being verbal.
Thank you, Tony. Having a motion and a second, is there any discussion or any questions that you'd like to ask Sam?
If I may, I just want to make sure that I understand something. The $45,000 of construction administration services, that if task order number 3 is approved, that $45,000 would also cover the construction administration services for that.
That's correct.
Okay. That's all I want to make sure.
Tony, did you have something?
That was my question, rest of it.
Sorry.
I was cheating on my paper.
Well, you wrote it down.
He was just cheating off your notes.
So this is for a separate building that will house restrooms and concessions,
Yes.
and where is that going to be located?
Well, let me clarify. Service order number 2 is not for that.
Right.
Service order number 3, which is the next one, is, and I can plug in here, show you all kind of some updates on that. Hit the middle button.
I believe so, without looking at it.
That's what you showed me last time. Maybe not.
That's an hourglass.
That's. While he's plugging in, Chad,
It should be.
any insight on grant money?
Pull it out. Out of here. I'll put it back in.
Try doing this with a jury. Getting your computer to work. You got a guy that comes with.
Oh, but that's, I'm using the wrong cord.
There you
Tell you
go.
what.
There you go.
I swear it worked when we came in on. The jury doesn't want to wait. No, they do not. It worked when I came in on Tuesday.
It did work.
Oh, yeah.
You may have to go the old fashioned way, show and tell, bring that picture.
Yeah, we just.
There we go.
Technical
difficulties.
Nope, it's not picking it up for whatever reason. That's a real problem.
Oh, she.
If I time this right.
Should I-
Should have done that.
I'm pretty okay
I think the camera's off and so nobody can see me. Yeah, that's great. Oh, but the microphone can still pick me up, right? Busted. Just not picking it up.
Metal water bottle.
That's the only one, is that right?
With this, if I unplug that, is it there, would that work?
Jeff, get that picture and bring it there. We have to go the old fashioned way.
Yes.
Hey, there we go.
We'll work it that way, we'll just bypass them.
Now that we've been through all that, I almost forgot what your question was, Tammy.
Task order 2, what task order 2 included?
So,
Well,
It-
3.
this is
Well, 2
for
right now.
task order.
I was just trying to clarify what was what.
Okay.
So for task order number 3, I'll go back just to the original master plan. So this is the structure we're referring to that is outlined in service order number 3. So it'd be concessions and restrooms in adjacency to the stage that would help support that space for events. So what we also agreed to at our last meeting prior to any authorization of scope on the design of this is just to throw together a floor plan that would kind of illustrate the design intent of that structure. So this is a 30 by 60 footprint, which is what's shown on the master plan. Would allow for men's and women's restrooms on both sides with a centralized entry point here that has kind of a privacy screen. We have 9 water closets or urinals in each of those. And the other thing we've included in this, which we do at event spaces that get used for both large events and just everyday use, we've included a divider that you guys could actually keep this door shut on both sides from a maintenance perspective. You wouldn't have to keep all of those restrooms active and open to the general public throughout the year. You could still keep this front half open and available to them while closing this off, which just eases your overall maintenance since you're only going to have events so many times a year. The other side, we have a concession with 2 windows that would face out to the field area. So going back to that master plan, I can real quick, just to show you kind of where I'm talking about. Those windows would be kind of here, facing out in that direction. This actually would show that better. So you have your concession windows here, and then your bathroom entrances here. One of the things I mentioned to Jack before we got started today, that's just an initial stab at that. That thing can be rotated and positioned in different ways, and we can continue to work through this floor plan. But I do think from a standpoint of what we talked about last time, we're close square foot wise to where I thought we would be on this. And I think while it's not sized for an event that would have 3,000 people, you're still going to probably want to have some porta johns available, because general rule of thumb with these types of events is you want a restroom within 500-foot walking distance to a spectator. Obviously that's a big field. You guys could still bring in porta johns to help with the overflow, but this would take a lot of pressure off of that need as well. So that's kind of what we've come up with so far. Certainly, can answer questions or talk about feedback. And then I've got an update just on the stage and what changes we made to that since we last met.
And this only applies to service order number 3. Service order number 2 that we're currently voting on is the stage, the bathroom, and the rest of that, the initial work.
Can you help clarify something for me? And I apologize for not being here last time, or a month ago, whatever that was. It was really hard to hear, so I missed some of the things. So if you explain this, I apologize in advance for repeating it. But originally, I think when you came to us for all the steps, the design, permitting, geotechnical, conceptual plan, all that, I think the cost was $255,000. Is that right? Originally?
I think the combined cost was at that ballpark, yes, because I still had 2 service orders originally. I had one for the restroom and one for the stage, but your combined cost was at that threshold, yes.
Okay, so where would not with service order number 3, but with the restroom and the stage only, where are we with costs in relationship to that 255 originally?
So service order number 1, we have executed version of you're at $150,000, and that was for the stage and restroom, initial restroom. That was survey mapping, geotech, and design and permitting. And then with our proposed service order number 2, you're going to be at basically $203,000 with the bidding and the construction administration.
Okay. And when you talk about intermittent on-site inspections, I know one time it was talked about that would be like every 2 weeks, so someone would be here. Is that the same time frame that you're looking at now, as far as intervals?
So we would, on a project like this, we would have bi-weekly construction meetings. That doesn't mean that we won't be on site more or less in a given month, depending on their progress and what they have to report on.
Okay.
So if we have a summer like we've had this summer and they haven't worked for a month because you can't because of the weather, we're probably not having on-site progress meetings. We'll probably do quick like Microsoft Teams meetings where we're going through RFIs and pay applications and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, generally we have bi-weekly construction progress meetings, so that's assumption's not changing for this.
And then the other question I had, and it's always been a concern of mine, we're going to look at developing the entirety of Spencer's Landing at some point. And I know one time you all talked about keeping in mind, you know, when we're doing the stage and the restrooms, the needs of the multi-purpose part.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that the city needs to be doing or we need to be doing in order to take all that into consideration so we don't put the cart after the horse, before the horse on that section of the multi-purpose thing, that we've got everything in place we need as far as infrastructure and geotech and all that kind of stuff?
So we are taking that much more into consideration with this concession and restroom than we were just the stage. If you put the stage there and you left just a blank canvas after that, I wasn't nearly as concerned. But as you start to add a restroom, you start to think of, and going back to that plan, if I can, you start to think about how does this structure interact with this space and the stage itself. And that's where I think there's some fine detailing of that as we get into the design of that. It may get rotated, it may get pushed a little further away from the canopy. The other thing that I was mentioning to Jack before the meeting started this evening is going ahead and getting some of those tensile structure vendors to provide us a design, because one of the things with this performance space that will be a challenge, if you do a structure like what is shown in this plan, like some of the case studies we looked at from the Dayton example, it has to be a certain height minimum, or you're not going to be able to see the stage from way back in the lawn space. And we think that's about 20 feet is what that clearance needs to be. So that's something, you know, they can do designs that have a bunch of columns and posts that are going to create visual obstructions and get to that height. But what we really need them to kind of start looking at is what can they manufacture that would not have those obstructions, and maybe only a couple posts or columns on each side that can span that space. So that is something we're taking more of a look at with this new service order number 3. Up until this point, if all we were doing was the stage and the far away restroom, I wasn't nearly as concerned about future phases, other than some of the things we talked about in the last meeting I was here, is leaving stub outs for utilities. If we don't do, for example, if we don't do this concession and restroom right now, we're going to be putting a water line in and a sewer line in. We want to go ahead and leave stub outs for those to tie in the future. Same with electrical, leaving junction boxes in appropriate locations. So that's all got to get to your point. Like, we don't want to come back and tear pavement up 2 years from now when you get money to do your next phase. So part of this design and bid document package is going to leave like spare conduits and casings for future development, where we know we're going to have pavement that we have to dig up if we go back and develop more. So
Great, thank you so much.
Anything else?
Having a motion and a second, and no other discussion, all those in favor of acceptance and approving resolution number 1, signify by raising your right hand. The resolution passes. Moving on to resolution number 2, Russ?
This is a resolution authorizing and approving service order number 3 with Thrasher Group Incorporated for a geotechnical investigation, design, and permitting services for the Spencer's Landing concession and restroom building project. As I stated before, I think the primary interest of the public is the description. So the scope of services under service order number 3 includes additional geotechnical investigation, design, and permitting services, including preparation of design documents necessary for permitting, bidding, and construction of the project, and then the cost. Service order number 3 provides for a lump sum fee of $45,000, consisting of $10,000 for additional geotechnical drilling and $35,000 for design and permitting services. And the rest you've already been provided. I'm sure can take care of yourself. Right?
Do I have a motion to accept?
Yes.
Second.
And a third and a fourth? It's in the way of discussion, just so that everyone is clear. When we approve this, or should this get approved, it will be wrapped up into service order number 1, and there will be one set fee paid for everything overall. So it's not two separate fees. Tammy, are you clear on the third one is for? Tony?
That's service order number 2, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this one was.
This is we're on service order number 3, resolution number 2.
Resolution number 2,
Right.
service order number 3.
Yep.
Package will be lumped together.
I'm dealing with
Yeah.
service order.
You're doing great.
Tony, go ahead.
Mr. Sassen hit on this just a few minutes ago, and I know I'm going to rewind us back. I don't even know how many months ago it was, but originally, whenever we were talking about kind of getting this service order together, from the get-go, it was create a design, a package that would go out to bid, and at that point in time, once we had that package ready for bid, it was at that point we felt like we might be able to start looking for some grants that were available for this kind of development. Have we got to that point where we're able to start seeking those grants or looking for matching funds or anything of that nature?
Yeah, so basically we're probably beyond a point where we should be doing that, if I'm being honest with you. And here's why I'm saying that. If with what we have now, you guys could go out and apply for funding. We could give you cost estimates, we could give you concept plans, enough that a funding agency will accept, knowing especially that you're working on shovel-ready plans. The one caveat to that is if you already have the shovel-ready plans and say, I have a project that's ready to go, it makes those funding agencies more likely to fund your project because they don't have to wait on permitting, environmental, design, which takes time, as we know. So I think it's never too early to start looking for funding, but I think the reality of where we are now is you guys are inching closer to being in that top tier of consideration just because you're further along than most applicants the funding agencies are going to get, because you're investing your own dollars in design and upfront cost to hopefully be able to entice construction funding. Now, one thing we have to be careful with is if we go ahead and put this thing out to bid, no grant source is going to work as a reimbursement after the fact. Like, you're going to have to get that grant before you award a contract. So we can put things out to bid, see how our pricing comes in, and you guys are not obligated to accept those bids. We intend to bid this project where you could basically identify what's the stage going to cost, what's each of the restroom concession area going to cost, what's the site work going to cost, so that you could even basically award a contract based on not all of the above, but one or the other. So this is all basically trying to set you up to, if you go out to the effort of putting this thing out to bid, you have options to award it, but not necessarily the entire project.
But if you have contingencies in there, like contingencies waiting for funding, if the funding source takes too long, your bid prices could change.
Yeah.
Not dramatically, but enough.
Right. And you're, like, when we put it out to bid, just so everybody understands, contractors, it's standard industry practice that they will only hold their bid price for either 60 days or 90 days. We always defer for 90 days, especially when we're working with public entities, because this stuff takes time to get contracts signed. So, but 90 days in the grant world is not very long. So that's where I think if we're going to try to use grant funding to pay for any of these pieces, and it doesn't hurt you all to put this out to bid just to get a gut check on where things are, that's actually from the contractor market that's going to build this, not just an engineer's cost estimate. You don't have to accept any of the bids. You can deny all of the bids. Now, you have the cost associated with the advertisements and running the pre-bid and going through that process. But I want everybody to understand that that's, we can't put it out to bid and then get the grant funding retroactively, because most of those funding agencies are going to want to approve your bid documents before it actually goes out.
And with that being said, have we consulted with we've got a grant writer that the city uses. Have we talked to her about any of this?
Yes, in part. Right now, the monies that are being awarded in grants are projects that are job creation or tied to coal field reclamation and those various things. There are very few dollars that are available for event venue space. It's just the way of the world right now. Things that do economic development, that would be to put something in that's going to create a mass flow of jobs for a particular project. yes, there are funding, but in the way of a project like this, what we have researched and looked at is that there are not many dollars available for people that are putting grant money into these types of projects.
That's
They
not
have
what
to
was said
be,
at the beginning when we started this process.
say again,
That's not what was said when we started this process.
and that is absolutely 100% correct, but the grant world has changed over the last 18 months dramatically in the way of what's being awarded. And even grants that were long-standing grants for agencies and programs that had been in existence for a long time have lost funding just in general. The funding streams have gotten tighter, they've gotten much more narrow, and they've gotten much more focused on very specific programs other than development of what would be considered recreational or service space such as this.
We've only been in office for 17 and a half months.
That's correct, and the world has
It
changed.
changed in 18 months, I mean, so it was changed before we even started this.
And that all that stuff is taken into effect.
Mr. Rich, are you, aware of any brownfields grants and agencies that are looking to develop sites such as this?
Most of your brownfield related money, especially from EPA, is going to be assessment and cleanup based. So they're not necessarily going to pay for post land use improvements. Like some of the funding sources that were mentioned were like the AMLR program, Abandoned Mineland Economic Revitalization. This is not a mine site. Wood County doesn't have very many mine sites, but they changed that to be more open-ended so that basically if you have a mine site in your county, which Wood County does, you can apply for that funding source. And it was because they were, I don't think, getting the quality of applications when they were just focusing on sites that were being developed that were pre-law mine sites. They weren't getting enough applicants to spend the money or to have good applications. That is a potential funding source. There's no match required, but match is also heavily favored in those applications. But it's a once a year thing. So that's one we would be looking at next year's cycle to apply for funding for. And that's where they also like to fund second phases once proof of concept has been established. Looking at the shelter, the multi-purpose venue, I think is where we need to gear our focus for the AMLR grant. Because they awarded Upshur County this year $12 million. It was actually a Justice Award combined with a Morrissey Award because it was 2 years. That's how they got $12 million. They got 2 funding years from AMLR for their record complex in Buchanan.
So when will the next year cycle begin?
It will probably open up in spring of 27. So
Is it more attractive to funders since this is a riverfront property, so that there's some extra possibilities that go along with riverfront than just?
and you all have had some of this funding before, like Eastern Federal Lands Access Program, I think was helped to pay for a kayak launch or something here in town. So there are programs that focus on river development. There's the Land and Water Conservation Fund, but it would not pay for a facility like this. It would pay for some of the recreational improvements, but it would not pay for a performance venue. They focus more on playgrounds, aquatic facilities that are more for health and wellness benefit, not so much about the type of economic impact that this would make. And it also it's a 50-50 grant program, meaning you all have to have 50% of the funds, and then they tie your property up forever. They put it into a restrictive covenant that basically says it's got to be used for recreation in perpetuity. While that may be the case here, it's just got some restrictive covenants that would limit you from doing any kind of private development on this property in the future if that were ever of any interest.
And if you recall, it seems like it's something that's not important is the restrictive covenants, but Jackson Park, we had the issue with the bathroom where the city of Vienna, 30 or 40 years ago, took money and ended up with a restrictive covenant that ran with the land. And he's exactly right. It can affect your ability to do something with the property at a later date.
And I want to clarify too, I would say the funding for things like trails, green infrastructure was heavily favored under the previous presidential administration. It's going more toward energy development. Obviously, there's a lot of focus on AI infrastructure, not only in our state but nationwide. So I think the funding climate changes with every presidential transition, and some positives and some negatives. Trails and that type of stuff is not being heavily weighted with the current administration. Not that they're not still awarding projects that cover that type of stuff, but it's going more toward their traditional programs. I'll give you an example. USEDA, Economic Development Administration, in 2021 launched a program that paid for projects just like this. But it was a one-time thing. They haven't done anything like that since. They're back to focusing on things that create good paying jobs that can be documented. And this is tourism projects are very hard to demonstrate job creation. You can have economic impact studies done that show the benefit to the community at large, but it's harder to pinpoint, I'm going to create 20 jobs that pay $50,000 to $75,000 a year. So I think there has been changes in the funding climate. There are still opportunities, but I think to the mayor's point, nobody out there is jumping up and down wanting to fund an event venue that's going to generate revenue. They would look at that more as is this really a community need, or is this a opportunity to create a destination? And that typically federal and state grant funding does not go toward that stuff as much as it would like a community playground or a pool or soccer field, for example. So.
Any other discussion?
I have a question that's not really related, but it kind of is. But I don't think any of us here has a good deal of construction experience. I know.
You may be surprised at what our talents are, Tammy.
Well, I know.
Well,
I did drywall when I was 19.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
But when we did the pool, one of the issues was that we didn't have anyone in the city appointed to be like a project manager. There was no one that was really that point person that had the skills and knowledge to be able to work with a contractor, to be able to pull out where things were going wrong, things should have been done some way, or how do you see your construction going, and what's the best type of person or situation to have to be able to oversee a project like this so we don't get into some of the mistakes that were made with the pool? I mean, just to speak honestly.
So I think the easiest way to answer that is it doesn't have to be a construction person. That's what our role is to make sure things are being built right and provide solutions when things aren't going well, or to work with the contractor on solutions to unforeseen circumstances. But we do need somebody from the city's representation standpoint to attend these progress meetings, to get feedback when we need it, when things come up and we need to make changes. I've worked with GIS people, I've worked with maintenance supervisors, I've worked with city clerks that don't have significant construction backgrounds, but they still are the representative that's been designated from the city's perspective to just be a part of the process and be able to kind of quickly get us direction and feedback when we need it. Things like, and I've brought this up before, we can make recommendations in the design documents on what the stone and the roofing should look like, but picking colors on the fly and when we get submittals in, like those are the types of things that, unless we're just given the authority to just make that decision, it's hard for us to give that to, come back to a council meeting every time we need that type of feedback. So I do advocate for a city representative to be part of our construction team. That doesn't mean we need 20 people from the city every time we have a meeting either. We need a core team that's going to be commit to being there when we have meetings, and so that's my feedback on that.
And I will be an active part of every one of the, whether it's solely me or someone else, I will be part of every one of those meetings and the decision-making process that goes on, and I will not be, and I'm not saying anything about anything prior to, but I will not be absentee from what will be a very important part of what goes on within our city.
And as I stated before, once the design is done and locked, it's done and locked. Because when you do scope changes, that costs extra money. You don't want the same debacle that the Wood County School Board of Education had with PHS football field. You got one side of the bleachers because everything overran.
I am confident that between this council and our city leadership, we will lead this project in the direction that it needs to go. I have all confidence in that, and have no concern for misrepresentation or a absentee presence in all that. I'm very confident that we will collectively work together, complete this project, and give our city exactly what they deserve, the best facility that we can within a budget parameter that we as a city can afford.
And I'll go, I'm sorry.
No, I'm gonna be off subject, so that's part of it.
Well, no, I just wanted,
Can we,
I know,
is it relating to
Yes.
what we're voting on?
Yeah.
My comment.
Okay.
Well, and I just wanted to chime in and say too, and this is for anybody listening, that we didn't hire a slouch company. I feel like Thrasher is going to do their homework. They're going to do the due diligence. They've got the core boring. That would be the only concern I would have was what's under the soil. They're doing the exploration to figure that out. I don't foresee there being anything that would happen down there that would cause a major change order other than us making those changes, which I agree, we should have all of our ducks in a row before we put it out to bid, because whenever they start coming back, those bids are going to be based on the designs that we're putting out. So we don't want to make any changes really post that bidding process.
Well, to an extent, if you have contingency money that it's clear we're not gonna spend and you wanna add something, let's talk about it. But I think I wanna also be very clear, there has to be a very consistent communication change. So where we get into trouble is if somebody that's a council member or a mayor comes down and says, hey, we don't like the way you did that, can you redo it? And then the contractor says, sure. And then we get a change order 2 weeks later, they asked us to change this. Well, they didn't tell me. I didn't tell you to do that. So I just want to be, that's why I think having a consistent person is important, because that contractor is going to be told, you don't take direction from the people outside of this core meeting. We'll take feedback and run it to the right person to make sure. And, you know, any of you could come to me at any time and say, what do you think about this? But I just need to know that I can get myself into trouble quickly if I just do what anybody just tells me.
We don't want you to get into trouble.
So,
Rod, what you got?
So I know your drawing can be deceiving. Does that, the stage is number 5 up there?
yes.
And does that include us pushing that back some towards railroad tracks, that drawing?
This was,
This was done
this is
after
the
that.
pushed back version. We had it originally further into the field than this.
I just noticed it and I just wanna make sure.
You said the angle
If
could
you
be
see
adjusted.
on his drawing number 5, which is that building, if you take the halfway mark, it was all the way out to the corner of Harper Construction's building.
That's cool.
Did you say you had a, sorry, Mr. Rich, did you say you had, yeah, I'd like to hear about this.
So, biggest piece of feedback that we took away from the last meeting was just the visibility into the stage area from kind of the view shed angle. So we did revisit that, and we have widened the stage frontage to nearly 60 feet, and has a 30-foot depth. So that is going to accommodate any major performance you guys would have here. And from a view shed perspective, now these angles, this really kind of points off and cuts off almost at the Gold Star area. If I can go back to this master plan real quick, you can kind of see, it's going to give you this whole area from a view shed perspective. Anywhere you stand in that field now, you'll be able to see into where that band is. Whereas before we were a little bit, that old design, we were a little bit more, in fact, this plan still shows it. You can kind of see there, we were almost pointing out like that. We didn't have that extended angle. So that is the big adjustment that we've made to that, to just accommodate a wider stage area, make it more comfortable for performing bands, and then open up those view sheds.
Having a motion and a second, and hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of passing resolution number 2, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank
So-
you all.
Do we need to do anything in the way of saying those are officially combined?
No, it's already in there, it's already done. When he sends them out, he now knows that he has approval for task order 2 and 3, and he can just send them out together, so you don't need any additional steps.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Can you email this to me?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'll get this to all the council members as well. It's upstairs. Yes. Yeah, it's upstairs. Moving on, what? Moving on to resolution number 3. It is the approval of the award of the city's on-call, master electrician services contract to Jimmy Harper Construction. Anything else on that?
Well, in brief, the city for the last several years has had an agreement with a master electrician to perform as needed electrical services or electrician services. That contract has come to an end. We've solicited, we sent out an RFP to get another master electrician to come in, or to get, not another, but to renew or open up I guess, to look for a master electrician to fill that now closed contracted spot. So that's what this is. We've sent out solicitations. We received two companies back. Pro One Electric was one, the other is Jimmy Harper Construction. The city went through the process of interviewing and scoring and so forth, and this resolution approves the on-call master electrician services contract to be awarded to Jimmy Harper Construction. And essentially, I'll just go through one through now 6. Vienna City Council hereby approves the award of the city's on-call master electrician services contract to Jimmy Harper Construction, Inc., subject to the satisfaction of all licensing, insurance, bonding, business registration, and other requirements imposed by the solicitation, applicable law, and resulting contract. All expenditures remain subject to appropriation of the availability and encumbrance of funds, applicable purchasing requirements, and any monetary limitations imposed by the contract or applicable law. Contract is an open-ended repair and maintenance contract for recurring electrical services. Said contract shall not exceed $500,000 as per West Virginia Code 522.1 for the life of the contract or any extensions. Nothing in this resolution guarantees Jimmy Harper Construction Inc. a minimum quantity of monetary amount of work, nor is this an exclusive agreement. The city shall retain all rates reserved in the solicitation and contract concerning work outside the scope of the agreement. Mayor is authorized and directed on behalf of the city of Vienna to execute the contract with Jimmy Harper Construction Inc. together with such ancillary documents as may reasonably be necessary to effectuate the award, provided that the contract and related documents are approved as to form and legality by the city attorney, and the finance director certifies the availability of funds as required by law. And lastly, the award and all work performed pursuant to the contract shall remain subject to applicable provisions of West Virginia law, ordinances and purchasing requirements of the city of Vienna, and the terms and conditions of the city's solicitation and the resulting contract. So that's where we're at.
Haven't heard the resolution. Do I have a motion to accept? Yes. Have a motion and a second. Is there any? Got it. I have a motion and a second. Open for discussion. Hitting my mic. Have a motion and a second and no other discussion. All those in favor of approving resolution number 3, approving the award of the city's on-call master electrician services contract to Jimmy Harper Construction, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Item number 4 is ordinance on first reading, amending certain sections of our employee handbook. Mr. Cox said.
This is an ordinance amending and adopting certain leave, family and medical leave, paid parental leave, and firearms provisions of the employee personnel manual. Without going through the entire thing, because it is long. And I'm sorry if you have a PDF that has everything highlighted. When I started doing this, I was just highlighting the changes to the actual text that I was doing. And by the time I got to the end of it, there were more sentences highlighted that were not. But what essentially this does is since Vienna adopts its personnel manuals by ordinance, we have to make changes by ordinance. And we do that because there are certain pay rates and so forth that are included in the personnel manual. So we've added a requirement for vacation leave carryover, special administrative leave to cover those instances where, for example, the governor declares a half a day or declares a holiday that by statute would only be a half a day, but then comes back and says, well, we're going to give you all of Christmas Eve off. And this, we never really had a policy to deal with that before. So this will essentially take care of that. It also creates a paid parental leave policy, and I'll let the mayor go into that a little bit further if he wants. And as part of creating the paid parental leave policy, I looked at our FMLA policy, and I went through with the assistance of Ms. Brockman, who's our HR person, and updated our FMLA policy. I went through the firearms statute, or the firearms restrictions in our personnel manual, and made sure that that was in conformity with West Virginia code. And then essentially those are all of the major changes.
So one of the two big areas, one, as he talked about, is our ability to do that special administrative leave when there are times that we want to award time off around a holiday that wasn't previously authorized without it falling into those special categories. This now gives us that availability and freedom to do that. The second, which is I believe a huge step for the city of Vienna, and I don't know of other municipalities, but even before we found ourselves in a position of expecting a little one, when I first took office, I expressed the desire that I wanted to be able to create additional vacation time or leave time for expecting parents, both paternity and maternity side of the house. And this will now give us the availability to, I believe, attract a younger generation in our workforce, which we're going to see. We realize that in the next few years, we could see significant change, especially in our senior positions and our department heads and such, and we're going to have younger people coming into those positions most likely. And if they are so blessed with a young one on the way, the city now will have this parental leave in place that will give them the time that I feel strongly that they should have to be able to be with their newborn child at the very, very beginning stages of life. So I was very happy when Stephanie and Russ were able to research this, work this out, and put this into practice that we could include in our manual. I believe this is a huge step for our city. That sums it up.
Yeah, and just so we're all clear, the difficulty in doing this is you have to find a way to balance, to generate a policy that takes into consideration the special conditions of a mother who gives birth, and then also the considerations of the father who wants to spend time. So what we've done is created essentially a two-tiered section, meaning you get 2 paid work weeks off if you are for bonding. And then in addition to that, the person who actually, the mom, when she gives birth, gets an additional 4 work weeks of paid childbirth recovery leave. So mom can have 6 weeks of leave, and dads can have 2 weeks, work weeks basically. And that way you're not discriminating, so you're taking into consideration the special conditions that motherhood comes with it, recovery from that, but you're also allowing fathers to be able to participate at least in the early parts of the bringing home baby, right?
Can I ask a question before we get any further, just to clarify this? Like the highlighting on this are all the new areas?
Yeah. Like I said, when I started this, that very first paragraph is a vacation leave carryover, and so that was the change to the policy.
Okay.
And then I went through and did the special administrative leave, which ends up being an entirely new thing, and then ended up doing that with the FMLA and the parental leave policy. And the reason the FMLA policy had to be redrafted was because if you take the 6 weeks off for the childbirth and the parental bonding of your mom, that's going to take 6 weeks of your FMLA I mean, you're still going to get paid and so forth, but you're not gonna have the full 12 weeks that you would have under the normal FMLA policy. And I thought, well, if I'm gonna do that, I need to go through it. And I went through and updated, again, with Ms. Rothman's assistance, just our general FMLA policy. Some of the language that we were using was about 10 years out of date. And, you know, that's just one of those things that you just carry over until you have an opportunity to address it. And that's what we did here.
So everything got, everything got highlighted.
That's why I was making a joke at my own expense.
So everything else was in the personnel manual that had to do with this will be gone,
Yes,
and this would be what was there.
this will replace it.
As far as the fire, do we need to make a motion, did we already?
You need to
No, we
make a
haven't still
motion.
talked.
Oh, okay. The firearms,
But the reason I did this was not to begin the discussion.
We
The reason I did it was
we
just to give
haven't
you.
taken a motion or a second on this
okay,
yet.
that's
Yeah.
what I was asking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Do I have a motion to accept? Motion, do I have a second? All right, go on with your discussion.
What, did the city have a firearms policy,
Yes.
and what did
Oh,
it
kinda.
say?
Well, I mean, it basically said that there are no firearms to be, you know, brought into the city, which doesn't, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit because I don't have it in front of me, which is not completely in compliance with West Virginia code. West Virginia code allows or prevents cities from restricting firearms from being located in certain areas. So this policy puts us in compliance with state code. It gives, I mean, what could happen is somebody could come in and violate the policy that we have in place, and then when you try to take disciplinary action, your disciplinary action is not really gonna mean anything because you're not in compliance with state code.
So why are we asking for elected officials to be able to carry?
Well, for me, just the general dangerousness of it's not so much that we're allowing them to do it, we're just not preventing them from doing something that they can already do. And we're affording the city protection, I guess, legal protection, insurance protection, and so forth, in the event that something were to happen with an elected official while they were out in the regular course of their business, acting on behalf of the city. What I would be concerned with something happening and then our insurance carrier saying, well, look, you have this policy that says you can't do this, and we're not gonna cover it, and that leaves the city potentially with having to bear the cost of defending itself in the event that there was some incident that may occur.
Does this include other people employed by the city? Because I know, say Liz, for example, has been the brunt of some not so nice, anger and hostility and almost threats from some people over time.
Sure.
And, you know, so I'm not sure that it's just elected officials that, you know, have to deal with people. I mean, all kinds of people do. But I guess I'm just trying to figure out.
Well, I'm never gonna be able to draft a policy that covers every scenario, okay? You do the best that you can. So what you have to balance with this is, you have to balance the state law, which says essentially that the city cannot prohibit employees from bringing a firearm to the parking lot, for example, of their workplace, as long as the firearm is secured in the vehicle. You have to balance that against the city's interest in being able to control who or who doesn't have access to a firearm even on their property. And so what this policy attempts to do is to take into consideration the individuals that are most frequently exposed to the public, allow them to continue to exercise their constitutional rights while they're out and about in the public. Because as you know, the reason the elected officials are pulled aside of this is, as opposed to a regular city official, is when I come to the city building, or a department head comes to the city building, you're coming to a workplace or a work environment where there is at least some semblance of security. So you're just playing the odds, I suppose, by saying the likelihood of something happening in the city building is much lower than individuals that are out requiring or interacting with the public who are representing the city and doing their job that way. And so essentially what you're trying to do is balance the city's ability to regulate itself while allowing individuals to still be able to exercise their constitutional rights, and doing so in a fashion that in the event, and realistically, the odds of something happen are exceptionally low, but they're not zero. You have to allow people that are out and exposed to be able to protect themselves if they so choose. And what this policy is trying to do is draft it in such a way that the city itself still has insurance protection and coverage in the event that something were to occur.
Was there something that occurred, or did someone specifically want this, or
Well,
how did it come about?
I'm not going to go into that. As far as something specifically occurred, we had one instance a handful of years ago where an individual was coming to city court for a shoplifting ticket. And that individual ended up going to the wrong building and found himself in the Vienna Volunteer Fire Department Women's Auxiliary meeting over here, and had to be taken out by the police and the SWAT team and so on and so forth. And he brought with him what everybody thought was a firearm, but ended up being, I can't remember if it was non-functioning or if it was just something that looked really close. And that was what precipitated us having metal detectors and so forth, and a bailiff or an officer here during city court. And so, as I said, this is a policy that is trying to balance everybody's interest balance interests as best they can while giving as much protection as can reasonably be done to the city of Vienna as a legal entity itself.
Any other discussion? Having a motion and a second and no other discussion, all those in favor of approving on first reading, what?
Oh, no, you're fine.
Oh.
I was louder than I intended to be.
Oh. I thought you said no.
No,
I was like, what do you mean no?
You're fine.
Getting back to the matter at hand, Ross, thank you. Approving on first reading the ordinance amending the city's personnel. Yeah, we get past that, right? All right. All those in favor of approving ordinance first reading, item number 4, please signify by raising your right hand. Now that we can get past all that. Ordinance approves on first reading. The second reading will be at our next council meeting. In the way of our agenda, that is all we have on official business. Now moving on to report standing boards or committees. Go ahead, Henry.
Budget and finance meeting is up in the air for next month because first week is out, second week I think people are out as well. So we may have to do something the week after. So Rodney will play it by ear.
Anyone else? Council comments. Go ahead.
You know, we probably don't thank Russ enough for his background and his comments on things. He gives us a little a setting of where we need to be. The approach of Russ, just appreciate it. We probably don't get thanked enough. Thanks.
Right.
This is a very, very exciting day because exactly 15 years ago to the day, I went on my very first date with a woman that became my wife, Rachel.
Can you just not, you know what the rest of us are going to have to do?
Yeah.
Really, here you do again.
So, if you're listening, darling, love you and happy BAD Day.
And we're going to alert authorities where you're at so they can come rescue you. Well,
Can you spell Rachel for me?
Rachel.
So I can put this down right.
RACHEAL.
so I will see you and I will raise you 5. As many of you know, we welcomed Miss Aria Lynn Emmerich into the world last Monday. She decided to come on her own 2 weeks prior to, but she was born a very beautiful, healthy girl. Thank goodness she looks like her mother. Baby is doing exceptionally well. Mom is doing exceptionally well. We're so very thankful for God's blessing in that. And it is just an exciting time in the Emmerich household. She's eating well, she's sleeping well. It is just a wonderful bundle of joy. And when the time comes, I'm sure you'll be all given the opportunity to meet her. Anyone else? Yeah. Russ is going to get you. If there's nothing else, this meeting stands adjourned.
Yeah.
So what?